our CRO. He's responsible for managing the worldwide sales organization and our go-to-market strategy, as well as joined by Dave Conte, our CFO, who leads all financial and operational functions at Databricks.
Hey, hello everybody. Thanks for joining us. Heather mentioned I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Databricks. I joined the company over 3 years ago, having spent 30 plus years in the Silicon Valley, working in high tech. A lot of, I'm sure what I'm going to hope to share is, at least from the seat that I occupy, how have things changed around how we leverage data. It's a very different world in terms of how we operate, like the operational rigor inside of Databricks. So hopefully I can share some insights that will be helpful to you all.
Right. Thank you, Dave. Ron, can you share a little bit with us about yourself and your background?
Morning, Heather. Excited to be here and talk to everyone. So Ron Gabrisko, Chief Revenue Officer. So I run all sales, BD, partnerships. I've been here 7 years. We've grown the business from $1 million to well over $1 billion over that time, and it's been an amazing journey so far. And excited to share some of the insights in how we've grown the business.
Awesome. Thank you both. Ron, I'm going to actually start with you. I'd love to get your thoughts and insights on how Databricks has used data to drive rapid and sustainable growth.
Yeah, no, great opening topic. As I mentioned, Databricks is, one of the fastest growing SaaS companies. Amazing market. Companies are transforming their entire business using data and AI. With our kind of super rapid growth, we had to take a very in-depth view of our own data to try to make decisions about the investments we were making. So we use data every single day on the Databricks Lakehouse to make decisions around where should we expand in different regions internationally, where should we put data centers in terms of our cloud footprint, how do we provide better customer support, territory planning, top of market funnel, even product development. So, maybe just to give a couple brief examples, like predicting marketing campaign effectiveness, we're doing all kinds of data analysis on top of funnel. Every single customer, we're looking at how they use our different products and those usage trends to look at, where we can help them more, where they can grow. All that data is in real time for our field and field engineering team to try to help our customers be successful. We use that data to grow, with our clouds and other partners, so we can understand which partners in real time are engaged, how they're using our partner products through Partner Connect or various clouds around ML and AI projects. And then we're also predicting every single customer's usage. So we're using that to predict revenue growth, predict specific, we're using that for all kinds of comp planning. And again, even our target market, like our DB 2000, which is our target 2000 customers, we're using all kinds of propensity to buy models based on usage to better target the market. So we literally use it as kind of a single source of truth across the entire business, using kind of the, obviously using the Databricks Lakehouse.
Amazing. Dave, clearly Ron's outlined that we are incredibly data-driven as a company, but I'd love to get your thoughts on how we've evolved the approach to data and decision-making. And, as Ron shared, I'd love it if you could share with the audience a specific example.
Sure. I think, the operative word that Ron mentioned is real time. So like the legacy operation from a financial perspective would be heavily weighted from a backward looking perspective. Like what happened? And we would spend a whole bunch of time doing analytics, and then we would deliver those analytics, back to decision makers, and, trying to do that is great. Though what ends up happening is that backward looking doesn't really tell you what's happening today, because there's this latency to it. And I think the the other piece is the lack of aggregation of that data. So maybe Ron in his world is doing propensity to buy modeling for customers. And then in the finance world, we're working on forecasts that would, candidly be historically in Excel with, age data. So now we've got two different data sets that we're trying to work on. So an example in this context that Ron already mentioned, we look at a single pool of data around our customer, not just what they've done, but using Databricks to help predict what they're going to do. And that enables us in finance to say, hey, are we allocating our resources in the right way to go, ensure that customer success? Again, the thing that's interesting, and many of you may know this and maybe you don't, but like the way we do go to market and the way customers use our product is foundationally based on consumption. So the element of real time couldn't be more critical for us because the consumption curves can move really rapidly. So are we nimble enough to be able to make changes to our own operation based on customer behavior? So without the real time element that we get out of the lakehouse, we would be in a serious lag situation.
Yeah, real time. And then I also, I think predictive, exactly what you're saying, not being backwards looking, but being predictive as well is really what gives us an edge as we use our data.
Well, maybe just to rip off that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, some of the things we looked at, just coming into this year into Q2, Q3, you kind of see, the market was changing a little bit in terms of the recession, in terms of customers wanting to save costs, things of that nature. It allows us to adjust our investment model, where we're putting headcount. We hired over 2,000 people this year, and we'll still hire, a number of folks next year. And so just being able to adjust that and put it into the most productive markets is really great foresight for us.
Yeah, and Ron, and we talk about this every day. It's hard. We have a series of high-class problems at Databricks. One of them is growth. So, Ron, you've been here from basically $1 of ARR to over $1 billion in ARR. So navigating that from a scale perspective is really challenging because things move so quickly. So the leverage that we get in terms of that real time, and Heather, to your point, the predictive elements are just critical for us to be able to manage ourselves.
Yes, incredible high-class problems that we've got. But Ron, if I could ask you to talk a little bit about, through that journey that you've been on, how has our business focus evolved over time, and how have we used data to support that? If you could explain a little bit of the why behind it as well.
Yeah, think about too, just, not just Databricks, but the market has evolved, right? We started in a very, what I would call enterprise, historic, commit-based business, and we transformed the entire business to be consumption-based and to focus on customer outcomes and customer success. Because we're a cloud product, like our customers can take their business wherever they want to go each particular day. And so we have to focus a lot on consumption and how do we make customers successful and drive successful outcomes. And so, it's very much land, expand, drive the first use case, drive success, help customers be successful. But, we're measuring specific use cases, specific migrations, specific business use cases, or other types of technology use cases at a very granular level to be able to understand our customers' usage patterns. Are they doing streaming? Are they doing ELT? Are they doing AI or ML to drive certain business transformations? And so we need kind of real time, super granular understanding of that to drive our business. And so we've transformed the entire company towards consumption first. And if you think about it, the amount of data volume and just complexity, we have thousands of customers now to be able to understand that. We actually have a thing we call the Lakehouse score to understand how customers are in their maturity journey on building a lakehouse and being able to drive kind of forward-looking predictive data decisions. And so we've had to get more sophisticated in our own way to drive consumption-based forecasting, that drives us into our comp plans and how we drive sales behavior and forecasting accuracy. And there's all kinds of data sources that kind of feed into that for us to be able to drive the business at 80-90% year-over-year growth at this kind of scale.
It's incredible. Ron, maybe staying on you for another moment. You got to prioritize, right? You can't do everything. So would love to hear how you've thought about how to improve the data platform, our Lakehouse, to be more data driven and also solve some of the more important questions as we've grown and scaled.
Yeah, I mean, you look at a number of things. First, just look at seasonality. Like we can, and I think Dave and later Michael Schaff will talk a little bit about how we forecast growth. Like we know based on the last several years how our customers are going to grow based on seasonality coming up into the holidays. So we can actually forecast usage, forecast where customers are going to need help. Lots of our retailers obviously have huge surges over the Christmas holidays. So, we can see that all in real time so we can best support our customers. Also, we're using that real-time data to every single account. We're trying to forecast usage, build territory plans, build comp plans, very specific to every single account. Whereas, before you kind of build comp plans or quotas based on, hey, here's the tenure of the rep and the size of the territory, we can actually build that down to an account basis to try to drive maximum growth, in every place of the business, as well as understand like, hey, we have more opportunity in India or more opportunity in Japan. We should invest more resources and have them specifically focused on these accounts that we think will grow. So it's been a massive transformation in terms of how we use data across the entire business.
Love it. Love it. Dave, what about from your perspective? How are you and the finance team using the Lakehouse today? And if you could highlight some of the key benefits that you see from your side of the house.
Yeah, for sure. Sitting here, Ron, like you keep giving me trigger words. Real time was one, and now forecast accuracy is the other. So like Ron's talking about forecast accuracy around customer behavior and how we deploy those resources. But I've had the pleasure of operating as a public company for over a decade, and forecast accuracy every 90 days is critical, from my vantage point in terms of how we, delight and set expectations with Wall Street. We operate that way internally. And, that motion is really enabled by saying, okay, well, how good are you at predicting? So when I first joined the company 3+ years ago, I think it looked a bit more traditional. And Ron mentioned our transformation over that period of time, where you had more siloed data sources. Maybe you had a data warehouse sitting in this group. And then we started standing up individual data lakes inside of Databricks. But what we've done over the course of the last period of time, and again, Michael Schaff's going to tell you some of the details within finance, is as a company, we're now sharing a single data lake. And that enables us to do much better predictive analytics and much better alignment, back to my first trigger word, which was in real time. So the benefits for us is a significant increase in forecast accuracy that enables us to make better decisions faster. Additionally, from a cost perspective, like we're reaping the benefits of a single unified Lakehouse data platform that all of the company is able to leverage, versus these disparate multiple copies of the same data. That data is not aligned from a timing perspective, and then you start getting different answers. Like the real power of machine learning isn't in the algorithms themselves. It's having the data volume. And that's what the data lake ultimately enables, because you have massive amounts of data, whether it's structured, semi-structured, or unstructured, in the data lake. And by using Delta, which is a primary engine inside of the Lakehouse, it enables you to pull all that data in a way where you can run meaningful algorithms and machine learning models that improve your predictability. So it's completely different from anything that I'd seen prior to coming to Databricks in terms of how we operate in finance, back to serving decision makers in the company and make operating decisions.
I can attest myself, being a sales leader, never in my wildest dreams when I started at Databricks did I envision myself waking up, opening up a Databricks notebook and hitting refresh to see what's going on with my customers. How are things trending? And that's a testament to the value of the Lakehouse as a sales leader at the company. So it's been an enormous effort and journey, definitely one that's well worth it from my perspective. All right, Ron, coming back to you, we're seeing a trend with the customer base that, data is moving out of being just the realm of a data scientist or a data engineer to having more people in the business overall be responsible for data, using data in their day-to-day lives. I hear a lot about data-driven cultures being led by CEOs and CDOs, chief data officers. I would love to hear what you're seeing across our customers and how they're putting data in the center of their decision-making process.
Yeah, no, great question. First off, like especially in this economic environment, every single CFO, one is trying to use data and AI to predict where their business is going. What are the inputs? What are the key levers that they can use? Even in a very tight kind of inflationary market where every single customer is trying to drive lower costs and cost efficiencies. I think data and AI is on the top 3 planned investments in something like, 51% of all CIOs. So, again, being able to take data inputs, which have changed pretty rapidly in this market setting, and start to drive, where they're going to invest. And that's very true of a lot of the SaaS companies and a lot of our customers and partners. Maybe just to give an example, talk a little bit about Atlassian, who's a amazing Databricks Lakehouse customer and partner. They've established the Databricks Lakehouse across their entire business to drive really data democratization at scale. Atlassian Analytics is based on Databricks. They're using that not only as a revenue generating product, so they productized data and analytics, but they're using that to analyze their entire business, pretty similar to how Databricks is using Databricks Lakehouse. And so, just that simplification, I think Atlassian has, 190,000 end users who are also trying to run their own analytics on support and their customers and their customer base to provide better data products. And so, like I said, in general, if you're a SaaS company and you're driven by consumption, being able to understand usage patterns for every single customer and then use data as a product with your customers will be a massive, revenue driver and innovation that I see in pretty much every successful SaaS company.
Absolutely. Atlassian's a fantastic example. So thanks for sharing, Ron. Let's talk a little bit about, these economic times. It's definitely interesting, and cost and total cost of ownership is top of mind for every business leader. And so I would love to hear your thoughts on how Lakehouse is driving cost efficiency, as well as a lower total cost of ownership, not only for Databricks, Dave, if you want to talk a little bit about that, but also for our customers, how we're helping them reduce their TCO. Ron, I'll start with you.
Well, actually, Heather, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. For some reason, I can't see you.
Yeah, I know somehow my camera is not working. This is the confidential part where I'm invisible.
You wondered if we were live, definitely live.
Yeah, I don't know. I keep going on. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, technology. Like for us internally, there's 2 elements that really serve for better efficient use of our cash. One, having eliminated all these duplicative data sources really saves us on infrastructure. So we're not having to, one, use a lot of the storage and compute, but we're also not having to use, several different iterations of software packages. So that's just pure, again, elimination of duplicative resources. I think, secondly, though, a lot of the innovation that we have built into Lakehouse itself accelerates processing time, and in particular our photon technology, that enables us to do compute in much faster turnaround times, and therefore we're spending less on the underlying infrastructure. So those are two areas specifically where we get better efficiency from using Lakehouse.
I love it. Simplification of the platform helps drive down TCO. Ron?
I mean, maybe just, to kind of, I guess, riff off of that within the customer base. I mean, every single customer, I'm sure every SaaS company is seeing this, but every single customer in this economic environment is looking to save money. Like, how do I don't know how they came up with this, but like, I pretty much hear from every customer, hey, we're looking to try to save 30%. And when I look at, the technology stacks and the data technology stacks in the market, you can save tons and tons of money by, migrating legacy Hadoop or data warehousing sources to the cloud and to the Databricks Lakehouse. Most of our customers are already on that journey. I would say on average, if they were spending, $3.50 on that in the past, you probably do it on Databricks for $1. And so there's real hard savings that we can drive for our customers, which again, in this economic environment, is what a lot of the CFOs are looking for. I think, if you can drive the top level strategy around your data and AI and how you transform your business with that, especially while saving a bunch of money, that's kind of the killer 1-2 punch there. So again, just to reiterate some of the things that Dave said, a unification and simplification strategy around data on one platform makes a lot of sense. How do you do data at scale? Because massive amounts of data from different sources. And then last, again, we talked a lot about collaboration, right? The ability for marketing and finance and sales and product to all be looking at the same and singing from the same sheet of music in terms of how we make decisions and how we're looking at the business. It's pretty amazing in how fast we can make changes and run in that scenario.
Yeah, and Heather, you'll see the output of this too. I mean, you provide inputs and outputs, but stuff Ron and I spend a bunch of time talking about where to deploy our resources in the field. And Ron, you've touched on it several times, whether it's propensity to buy, the right markets, where we've got our DB 2000. We're using data in the Lakehouse to make decisions about where to make investments. So I'm happy about the underlying cost savings from an infrastructure perspective. I'm actually more excited about where we're deploying resources for the right ROI downstream. And that's I don't want to say it's game changing, but we're so much more enabled being able to use the predictive elements from the Lakehouse than if we were just doing it in legacy systems or spreadsheets.
Even more growth to come. Well, so Dave, since you got the spotlight here, why do you think customers should really focus on using Databricks and invest in Databricks as their data platform when you look to the future?
Yeah, I think my trigger word in this context is unification. So the decision making from a competitive perspective, if there's any latency in your ability to make informed decisions, you're falling behind. So unifying all of your data sources across the enterprise enables you to make faster decisions that are aligned cross-functionally. And what I found is always the challenge is how do you stay aligned cross-functionally inside of the company? So Ron and I might have a great discussion and figure out where we should go deploy some GTM resources. But if our friends in field marketing aren't aligned with that, or even the product organization, or where we're standing up an in-region cloud instance, if we don't have that all tightly aligned, then one, we can't deliver to the customer, and two, it's going to cost us a lot more money. So real-time alignment, super valuable.
Love it. Would love to hear, your position on how we're looking to the future. A little bit about maybe where Databricks is positioned to be a partner.
Sure. I mean, we were having this conversation about a month ago with some C-level folks inside of our customer base. And they're like, Dave, why should I be confident in your strategy and your platform? I said, well, from a financial perspective, we have stated publicly that we crossed $1 billion in ARR, which is great. But it's great in the context that, well, we've got some validation that we're adding value, but it also provides us some economics, which are important. Why is that important? Well, we've also raised, $3.5 billion inception to date. Well, why does that matter? Because we're investing, I think, in a disproportionate amount of our resources into product development and R&D. So, I spent a bunch of time looking at peer groups and, how models work and what appeals to the Wall Street investor and those types of things. And where we allocate the resources matters a bunch. And we've actually been spending an accelerating percentage of our revenue from 32% to 35% of our revenue in product development, all dedicated to the platform. So when I step back and say, hey, what should, customers, what kind of confidence should they have in our ability to continue to deliver value? We're putting our money where our mouth is. We're putting it back into product development to enhance that experience and ultimately the value that customers get.
I think that's awesome. And when you couple that kind of financial investment in with the obsession we have with understanding what our customers are looking for, it's a winning combination. I'm gonna actually ask a question from the audience now. Thank you for submitting the questions. Earlier, Ron mentioned a propensity to buy analytics as a driver of growth. Could you expand on how you've leveraged those analytics and driven adoption within the sales organization, Ron?
Yeah, no, great question. I mean, especially for, SaaS companies trying to expand their markets or even earlier stage companies. Like first, we ran modeling around what does our ideal customer look like? So, looking at the global set of companies that spend money on data and spend money in the cloud, we kind of, and by industry, we used a number of different variables to understand, okay, based on that, we think, let's say these 2,000 companies represent roughly 80% of our TAM. And so we're going to focus our sales resources on expanding growth in that focused list. And, we may have maybe 60%, 70% of those today as customers. So we'll put all our hunter territories on the ones where we know they're going to have a high propensity to spend that first dollar based on their cloud and data and AI spend and industry spend. The second part is inside of our customer base, we're very data driven, every single, AE, SA, CS, they'll bring up a customer chart. We can see usage patterns, product patterns, specific to, are they doing streaming? What's their Lakehouse score? What are the new data sources they've input? What are their partner connections? And we'll actually use that to then predict a couple things. One, recommended next best use case, right? So if we're working with a retailer and they're doing demand forecasting, we can predict, hey, they would love to do stockouts because all of our other retail customers use stockouts, or next best offer on their e-commerce site, or curbside pickup, or some of those kind of use cases. And so, we'll be recommending to salespeople, which is great too, because you got to remember, if we're growing, the business and doubling every year, half of our people are brand new. So recommending the next best use case, and then being able to look at that customer and say, okay, I know if I do these for this customer, I'm going to make their usage grow and I'm going to make them more successful and I'm going to drive more business value. So all of that modeling every single day, our AEs and our sales team brings up that dashboard and can see their set of accounts. And what do I need to do that day to be able to drive more momentum, more customer adoption, and more customer success.
That's great. We've got Time to squeeze in one more question, Dave, Ron, either one of you. I'd love to get your thoughts on this, and it's really around the combination of consumption-based model and a data-driven company. So, how has this shifted how our organization worked? For example, how does sales operate differently with a small land consumption-based model versus a land with a big order? And there's an assumption that the risk is in the shift mitigated by our analytics visibility. Either one of you, feel free to dive in.
Yeah, maybe I could start, and then Dave, you feel free to jump in. But first and foremost, like in this environment, especially with new SaaS products, most customers want to try it out on one use case, make sure it's successful, make sure they understand the value of it, and then expand from there. It's the way great consumption SaaS companies are built. And so, we're looking for that first use case and where do we land and how do we make that first one successful. We know too that once we land that first use case, that we're going to be able to expand into all the other data engineering use cases, all the other data science use cases, all the other data warehousing use cases to create that vision of the lakehouse where you can get all those kind of insights from one data source, right? And so, for me, the risk is, if you're trying to do, I call it old school big enterprise lands, that's a way more difficult model to prove value to these customers. I'd rather do a land, prove that value, and then expand extremely rapidly. Like our, net retention rates, a record, right? It's amazing how our customers can adopt this technology once you prove value and help them understand how to use it. So to me, it's the only way you can build a super high growth SaaS consumption-based company.
Yeah, let me just pile on from my chair. Having come from the legacy perpetual on-prem 20% maintenance motion to a subscription business that's in the cloud to now one that's consumption-based, I think, it sounds cliche, but it's true. The number one corporate value here is customer obsession. So we think, look, having consumption as the driver of customer of value or of revenue for us aligns us perfectly. The more they use, the more value they get, the more value they give us, and we grow the business from there. So there's this natural alignment that happens. Operationally, it's much more difficult, and why the predictive piece is so critical, because the consumption curves can change. It's not like a SaaS thing. You sign a thing, you get a number of seats, and then you recognize it ratably in your income statement for the next 12 months, and you can manage your P&L perfectly. But that's not the case in a consumption model. So again, from where I sit, I love the alignment with the customer, because we really have to focus year round on making customers successful so they keep consuming. But then I got to be able to predict it and report it and manage the operation. So it's a fun challenge, but I like the alignment for sure.
Well, I think it's actually a great segue into our next session. So thank you for the questions. Those were absolutely fantastic. Dave, Ron, thank you for sharing your experience and the how of Lakehouse of Databricks on Databricks.